her $1. We owe her $1. You know, she a comedian.
Now, let's see. First of all, tell them what they need to know about the situation on this show.
Which particular situation?
Well, you all live together, or...
Yeah, well, myself, Kim, and Regine and Sinclair and Khadijah, we live together. Erica, she lives across the street, but she's always at our house like she lives there. And John Hinton and T.C. Carson, who are in the audience.
Yeah. There you go. John's been here many times, tearing the place up. Yes.
And there's no really where to go, you know.
Upon my research, which I thought was interesting, when we were preparing.
You've been doing a lot of research, haven't you?
This is nah. But upon kind of research, I was surprised that, and I never thought about it, but you ultimately left the show prematurely.
No, I got fired. We had a lot of, and I won't say a lot, but there were times when we had issues on the show. And we would come to them as a cast. But I would be the spokesperson for it. And so that last season before I left, they called me in. And they basically said, well, you know, all these problems that, you know, we've been having, they listen to you.
Queen Latifah, Kim Coles, Kim Fields, and Erica Alexander.
Did you ever stop to think about what the world would be like without men?
A bunch of fat, happy women and no crown.
My Girls, a new comedy coming soon.
You've made many friends on Thursday night. Now meet Joey.
If you need anything, you can always come to Joey. Me and Chandler live right across the hall. He's a way about.
Joey, stop hitting on her. It's her wedding day.
What? Like there's a rule or something?
Friends, Thursdays this fall.
You know, when I started doing this Living Single episode, a crucial moment happened that kind of influenced me. And that was this whole controversy with Halle Bailey as the Little Mermaid for the reboot. So I think to myself, like, everyone's all mad because it's a black girl playing it, but it's just like, why y'all mad though? Because for years, our culture has been duplicated, manipulated, but when you have something that's trying to highlight black women or black girls, now that's when it's an issue. So it brings me to this whole Living Single, Friends little situation and stuff like that too. Which honestly, if you guys have watched this channel, you guys know that I'm not the biggest fan of Friends. And I've honestly thought that show pretty much bit Living Single like many other people have thought. But here's the thing though, you know, originally when I wanted to do this episode of Why the Beef, it was originally supposed to be centered on why T.C. Carson left the show, but I thought to myself, why not just do an episode thinking about, was Living Single's blackness sacrificed for Friends' success? So just bear with me and pay attention to how I'm about to do this. So we've done, shout out to Try, Ash, and Mike, by the way, for the very dope episode we did on sitcom retrospective when we talked about Living Single. Make sure y'all check that shit out. So, you know, just giving you like a little run through and whatnot. Every conversation about the initial beginnings of the Living Single should always go back to Miss Yvette Lee Bowser. Now, Yvette Lee Bowser's resume speaks for herself. She originally started out as one of the apprentices of the sitcom A Different World, where she eventually became a producer by the 1991-1992 season and stuff like that too, you know. Then she left that show and then she took a position working on the Mike Curry sitcom Hanging with Mr. Cooper and shit for that first season. So next thing you know, she really wanted to have her plans on working on a show where her original goal was to develop a show about herself and her friends and whatnot too. Just life, living life, but it has to be like less stereotypical. And she pretty much said, and I quote, "I've been as ditzy as Sinclair, as superficial as Regine, as bitter as Max, and as focused and driven as Khadijah." So this led her to create her own company, Sister Lee Productions. And this company was known not just for living single, but also had another show that she did down the line, Half and Half. More on that later. And regarding her production company, she said, and I quote, "I just basically rip pages out of my diary and tell stories on TV," unquote. So let's get to the cast of Living Single. So you guys should know that the cast of Living Single, Queen Latifah and Kim Coles, they had already had development deals with Fox. Of course, Kim Coles, you guys should know, she was a member of In Living Color. She was on the first season. And at that time too, Queen Latifah, she was coming off her music career, and she had gotten into acting and stuff like that too. And at that time too, she had also formed her own label, the Flavor Unit label and stuff, you know what I'm saying? And then you had, of course, Erica Alexander, at that time she was coming off the Cosby Show as Cousin Pam. Kim Fields was already a veteran at that time when she appeared on Facts of Life, which was a show that ran in the 70s to 80s and stuff like that too. And you had John Henton, who was he had his stand-up comedy backgrounds and stuff like that. And then you had Mr. T.C. Carson, who at that time, he was an actor, in the movies like Strictly Business and stuff, you know what I'm saying? So she ended up, working on Living Single. And originally the show was supposed to be called My Girls and whatnot, you know what I'm saying? But they changed it to Living Single, thank God, because that My Girl was kind of corny, if you ask me. And so already from the gate, the cast became very cool with one another and whatnot too, and they were always like very protective of one another. The male cast members were very like big brothers to like the female cast members and shit too. And so, when the show debuted on August 22nd, 1993 on the Fox network, it was aired right after Martin and Living Color. And at that time, it was pretty much, rating smash. Well, let me take that back. See, it was a rating smash because, the Fox network was pretty much new at that time too. So it was a very much, number one, number two when it came to like black households. Because, early Fox had like a lot of black programming, like, Martin, Sinbad Show, Rock, and so on and so on. But then, T.C. Carson, he pretty much, if you guys watched the early episodes of, Living Single, Cal and Overton, they pretty much, and T.C. Carson explained that they pretty much had like a slapsticky Lenny and Squiggy vibe to them. And you guys should know Lenny and Squiggy were characters from the Gary Marshall sitcom Laverne and Shirley. You know what I'm saying? And he felt like with Cal himself being a stockbroker and stuff like that, they as the more male lead, especially black men, they should be more professional and stuff like that too, you know what I'm saying? So yeah.
These people on the Winnebago, you should know they ain't black.
Look, you women will take the nuts from a squirrel. We out of here. Come on, man, let's go.
Well, someone's got to protect women's rights.
Yeah. All this women's rights stuff just proves one thing.
What?
You want me. Yeah, and me too. I know what you're thinking. If it only had breasts, right? Yo, Overton, man, I just made fun of your hammer. What's up?
Man, they setting Sinclair up on a date.
With a dude? Ooh, that's deep, man. Who you calling a bitch?
All right, watch yourself. Set it off.
No.
Now, set it off.
Hold up. I think Kyle gonna handle this one. It's just an expression. No, man, it's a jacked up attitude. How dare you come in my house and disrespect my friends and talking all that garbage about Regine yesterday? Man, who do you think you are?
Wait a minute, let's back it up.
So, you know, Living Single pretty much had a very strong first season. And arguably, in my personal opinion, I pretty much feel like that's my personal favorite season of the show myself. You know, so many classic episodes came from that season and stuff too. Like the episode, The Naked Truth, where Overton moves in with the girls after he fought with Kyle and stuff like that. And then one of my personal favorite, five card Dud, dates one of Kyle's bosses and stuff like that. And Kyle's trying to get a promotion, but the boss pretty much, you know, kept dog-mouthing Regine and shit too. And, you know, Kyle had to put his foot in his ass. Well, pretty much just say, you know, get the fuck out of my house and shit like that too, you know what I'm saying? So as the first season of Living Single was pretty much, you know, gracing the TV airwaves, you know, creators David Crane and Mark Kaufman, you know, at that time, you know, they were coming off the HBO show Dream On, and they were developing 3 new television pilots that were premiered in 1994. Because at that time, their sitcom Family Album was canceled on CBS in 1993. And ironically, they wanted to pitch a series about 6 people in their 20s making their way in Manhattan. And they wanted to pitch that to NBC. And I think it's a fair thing to say that, you know, this particular show and Living Single was all under the Warner Brothers and stuff too, which more on that later. So they pretty much found the concept, and, you know, that pretty much led to the creation of Friends. In September 22nd, 1994, that show premiered on NBC. And you know what's crazy? You know, it premiered on Thursdays, the same night as Living Single and stuff like that too, because when it came to Living Single, they had their second season September 1st, 1994, because Fox Network at that time, they used to start like their seasons a bit earlier than the traditional networks like ABC, CBS, NBC, so on and stuff too. So
find out on Martin. Then only one thing stands between Kyle and a promotion.
It's your hair.
Will he make the cut?
Go all natural.
Living Single. Then Williams and Torres work.
I'm not doing this.
Come on.
No, this is a shameless, exploitive attempt to get people to watch our show.
Exactly. Friends, Thursday nights, right here on NBC.
Would you stop? They've got us in our underwear. We're never going to be in our underwear. We're not going to be in our underwear, are we?
Friends, between Mad About You and Seinfeld, Thursdays this fall.
yeah, man. And so of course Friends, you know, that pretty much was the thing with Friends. It had better marketing and stuff too. And with that show, a lot of people were just like fascinated because they act like they ain't never seen a show like that before. And so it was like a lot more critically acclaimed when it came out and stuff too, you know what I'm saying? And if I'm not mistaken, the show actually got number 8 in its ranking and stuff like that too, you know what I'm saying? But it's just like a damn shame because of the fact that when it came to the cast of Living Single, they kind of felt like, yo, what the fuck? Like, we started this shit. You know what I'm saying? T.C. Carson himself was pretty upset because of the fact that he believed that they stole Yvette Lee Bowers' idea and whatnot. They didn't really give her no credit for it, you know what I'm saying? So John Henton himself, he did a quote with Comedy Hype where he said, and I quote, "I was mad because we didn't get any credit for it. We get no acknowledgement. That's what bothered me the most. It was too similar. It was 6 black folks living in New York City versus 6 white folks living in New York City. They said Friends is the most creative show in the world, but Yvette didn't get that credit," unquote.
Thursday night at 8:30 up against Friends. So now you got Living Single, the original Friends, up against Friends. So now the black folks that watched us, they watched us, and the white folks that watched Friends. Actually, it was good marketing because nobody ever saw. Usually, like if you got a show that's similar in Hollywood, if you have a show about a hospital, you know, a hospital drama show, you won't put 2 of those right next to each other.
What the show was going to be, but then when they saw us together, when they saw how we interacted with each other, then things started to shift.
Was the show a hit in the beginning, or did it take a couple seasons for it to
No, it was a hit in the beginning when it first came out. That's why they cloned it.
Okay, we'll get to all that. Okay, so...
Don't look at me in that tone of voice, David. My publicist is here, and he's looking at me like...
To go to college. He wanted his daughter, on the show to be a judge, go to law school. But instead, they would have JJ doing Dynamite, and wearing the chicken hat, and so forth. And I remember he got to the point where he started actually threatening some of the writers.
Oh, wow. Worked on the big lot, so they got access to all the amenities that were on the big lot. At the end of it, they were making $100,000 an episode. Or no, $1 million an episode, something like that. We didn't approach, at least I never approached any of those numbers. They had better services. They had better craft services. They had better trailers. But at the time, we didn't care. We were working on the show we were working on. And quite frankly, I was happy to have a gig.
And so, with the success of Friends, many shows, they wanted to craft that same formula and whatnot too. You know what I'm saying? Like they wanted to craft that, singles, carefree in the city and yada yada yada. But check this shit out when it came to Living Single. So Living Single was still a popular show on the Fox network and whatnot, you know what I'm saying? But here's the thing. The network started doing some weird things and stuff like that, you know what I'm saying? So they started wanting to say that Kim Coles and Queen Latifah should lose weight. And this kind of bothered, them a lot, you know what I'm saying, from where I looked up. And I thought about this for a minute. I'm just looking at myself like, well, the women on Friends, Monica, Rachel, and Phoebe, they weren't the thickest women in the world and whatnot. So it got to the point where they actually had to complain to the men, and the cast actually had to stand together. The cast had to stand together to say that they didn't want to do this because they wanted it to represent themselves and to represent the authenticity of the reunion of the Living Single cast. And Queen Latifah, she said, and I quote, "We helped create Living Single. When you look at that picture, you see 4 different women, 4 different shades, 4 different types. And we looked like 4 women who would live in Brooklyn. And that's who we were supposed to be representing." And, she also continued on saying, "And we love being able to do that. Because we rock brands that nobody was rocking. We had all kinds of guests on our show that had never been on TV before. Rappers, actors, and just cool people. But the word came down that we need to lose weight." Unquote. And it's kind of crazy too because ironically, when Kim Fields was on Facts of Life, they were also ridiculed about their weight too because I think the producers want to send them to fat camp or some shit like that. Like it was crazy, man. Like Hollywood at that time was just weird as fuck. Well, it's still. And so the 3rd and 4th season itself, there were still very good seasons in the canon. But at the same time, I kind of saw a certain plot lines kind of getting a bit too sitcom-y, but not in a bad way because, the cast still elevated their material. Hell, even the 4th season have 2 of my favorite episodes of the show. Back in the day, where it was pretty much the cast reminiscing about how they first came together and met. That was a classic episode where they had Max and Regine fight in the living room, and then Khadijah doing the famous damn yo. And then also my personal favorite, The Rise in Harlem, where the Harlem Renaissance episode, which Living Single also did those anthology episodes where they represent Black history moments and whatnot too, and that was probably T.C. Carson's best moment on that show.
Nothing's in my ear.
You're a disgusting, perverted witch.
That works for me.
Oh, Miss Claire, what are you doing here?
I came to apologize. You turned the other cheek and I belted it.
Oh, the drapes. And who crashed through the banister is still a mystery. Hey, guys, I got my load of proof of flavor.
my personal opinion. But yeah, man. So T.C. Carson, since he was most known as a spokesman for whenever like the cast had issues or just representing like the authenticity of the group and stuff like that too. And he personally felt like that the certain white producers was trying to water down the show in order to fit the Friends label or that Friends style of comedy. You know what I'm saying? Ironically, the show that stole from this. So let's get started with the end of the fourth season. So it was the end of the fourth season, and TC was reading the script, and he was pretty much finding out that his character Kyle was going to London. So he asked them, does it mean I'm being fired? And he said that no, he was not being fired from the show. And mind you, at that time TC Carson was trying to get a new place. He's trying to get his life together and stuff like that too. So he was watching the episode that night, and then he got a call from his lawyer saying that he was indeed fired from the show. That's crazy. That's wild as fuck. So without Kyle, it was just like one of the main links of the cast broken and stuff like that too. TC Carson, he pretty much said in interviews that like he was pretty much shocked that he was fired and stuff like that. And it was revealed also that Erica Alexander, who played Max, was crying. He heard the news that he was fired because it hit the cast very hard. Like I said, the cast was very cool with one another, and you can see their on-screen chemistry come out all on screen, like through their characters and stuff like that too. So yeah, man, that's crazy as hell. But see, there was also more problems because at that time, the show was up in the air whether or not it was going to be brought back or whether it was going to be canceled and stuff like that too. And so, when the show was, when its immediate cancellation was almost heard from and stuff like that, a lot of the fans, they wrote letters protesting to Fox that they should keep the show on the air and whatnot. Because you got to also remember too, Fox Network by the mid to late 90s was beginning to get more and more successful in broadening out to different demographics. And people should also remember that at this time, demographics was really getting more, people was really like looking to demographics like around that time, when the 90s came about, when it came to television viewing. And so Fox Network, it wasn't just like, just for black programming and, made with children and whatnot. Because at that time too, they had also started airing the NFL Super Bowl at that time. And they would begin to also have like a different variety of shows. Like you might have your family fare, like, Simpsons and Married with Children. And of course, at that time, King of the Hill, which was just debuting at that time. But then you might also have, the X-Files at that time, which was popping. And then, of course, you also had, you might also have, of course, Beverly Hills 90210, which again, that was another big hit, which focused on the teen demographic. And so by that time, when it came to the black programming of Fox, you pretty much had like Martin, New York Undercover, Living Single, and stuff like that was on the air at that time. And then also around that time too, they was just reeling from the cancellation of other black shows like Rock and Living Color, The Sinbad Show. A lot of people was kind of upset at Fox at the time for, sweeping it up. But I want to get more into that in another day. So Living Single was brought back for its 5th season by popular demand on September 11, 1997. But the thing was, it was only brought back for 13 episodes. And already from the 5th season, a lot of changes was being made. By this time, Overton and Sinclair had gotten married by the end of the 4th season, and they were, enjoying married life. Of course, the departure of T.C. Carson, they needed like another male voice. So in comes Mel Jackson, whom at that time, he was just a newcomer in the business, and he appeared on a TV movie, To Serve with Love, the second. So probably a lot of fans, including myself, will say that this is like the least favorite season of the show, you know what I'm saying? Because it just wasn't there no more. I don't know what it was. I'm not saying that this season was deemed a failure, but it just it didn't have that spark at that time, you know what I'm saying? It just didn't have that spark. Like, yeah, there was still some pretty good episodes. Like, of course, my personal favorite of that was the iconic Up the Ladder Through the Roof, where the gang was listening to Motown and had that Motown fantasy. You know, that was pretty much like the only episode I was deemed as great. But they also had some, like, again, like some pretty sitcom-y episodes, like the episode where fucking Sinclair wanted to join an acting troupe but she disguised herself as a man, or just the quickie romance between Regine and this millionaire, which resulted in Kim Field's departure. More on that later.
What in bell-bottom hell do you think you are doing? I was just trying to entertain these people till you got back from your trip.
Excuse me. Call me crazy, but I think I'm looking at the next choupette.
What makes you think we want to be choupettes? Shoop, shoop is the sound that the broom makes when it's sweeping the black man under the carpet, man.
But yeah, man, this 5th season, it wasn't really that good and stuff like that too, you know what I'm saying? But honestly, I'd rather watch this 5th season than Martin's 5th season, if that makes sense. You know, of course, T.C. Carson, he left to go to London early of the 5th season and stuff like that too, you know what I'm saying? But then you also had the departure of Kim Fields. And Kim Fields at that time, she was kind of going through a lot. She was going through a divorce, and pretty much she had just formed a production company and whatnot too. But it was just like a lot of traction trying to get that together. And you can even tell from certain episodes, like she just wasn't. Interview, she said, and I quote, "My life at that moment was not what you would expect. I left Living Single a few episodes shy of completing the final season because the work, the process, and everything else didn't feel the same to me. I was at that point either divorced or about to be divorced or started a production company, and we had all these great projects but no deals." Unquote. Yeah, man, like that's just pretty sad though, you know what I'm saying? And so, the crazy thing about it was, like, the show was also canceled on New Year's Day of 1998. Like, wow. Like, they had 2 episodes, To Catch a Thief and Let's Stay Together. And the Let's Stay Together episode pretty much had T.C. Carson returning, and everyone pretty much was like a send-off, saying goodbye. Their lives were changing at that point. Khadijah had reunited with Scooter and everything. Of course, Regine married that millionaire, and she pretty much left like episodes prior. Maxine was pregnant, Cal's baby and stuff like that. So, I mean, was it rushed? Yeah. But I'm grateful that, again, like a show like that had a finale and stuff like that too.
Well, baby, I guess we should go too. I'm sure Khadijah got something to do.
No, she doesn't. She's all alone.
Well, it's our first New Year's as man and wife, baby. We've got something to do.
So yeah, pretty solid finale. But yeah, the cancellation of Living Single and also of New York Undercover, which also got canceled like in 98, 99. And ironically, that show at that time, at the end of the 3rd season when they lost Michael DeLorenzo, that was also up in the air too, when it was going to come back or not. But fans wanted to bring that show back. And so, like the cancellation hit them hard. Kim Coles pretty much said, and I quote, "Fox put on black programming and then it built up the network and then they started trying to move away from it," unquote. And so, she also pointed out that it was like shows like Martin and Living Color and Sinbad's show was one of the main reasons why Fox was very successful. And so she did also claim that, she was very depressed too, that the show was canceled and shit, So, yeah, man. Because you got to remember, Living Single was really like one of the first positive representations of successful black women on TV. They were all friends, like no beef among them and whatnot too, you know what I'm saying? So, Yeah, man, it's crazy as hell. But you know, T.C. Carson, he would eventually, him and Erica Alexander would eventually reprise their roles of Max and Kyle on Eventually Bowser's other show, Half and Half. You know what I'm saying? But this time, they were divorced with a kid. Honestly, I was not really the biggest fan of Half and Half, but I did watch that scene and stuff like that. It was alright. I'm just gonna say that.
At least she's not experiencing some midlife crisis in the theater, although it's clearly working out for you, honey. This place must hold what? 50 people?
And your support is my reason for breathing. Rehearsal beckons. Bye-bye.
So Living Singles, its legacy, its impact has pretty much impacted a lot of people. A lot of people were influenced by the show. Shows like Girlfriends and Insecure, most definitely. And, it found life in DVD, streaming, and whatnot too. So let's fast forward to 2020. So Friends, they pretty much had their reunion and whatnot. And in promotion of the reunion, David Schwimmer did an interview where he pretty much was saying that he was pretty much disgusted by the lack of diversity of Friends. And this is what happened. This is what really set people off. He said he wanted to do an all-black reboot of Friends. Huh? Sir, your show was the right reboot of Living Single. Let's be real about that. So this didn't sit well with Erica Alexander. And she pretty much read in an essay where she pretty much said, and I quote, "The show he was in was not the original. It was a knockoff. So there can never be an all-black Friends because Friends was an all-white Living Single. It sounds funny to say it, but identifying that fact is exactly where the conversation starts to go bigger than him, me, or a spontaneous tweet fight." And so she pretty much explained how, Living Single pretty much set the standard for how Friends pretty much stole from, the set standard for Friends and everything. And she said, continued, and I quote, "If black people in our accomplishments are continuously not seen, then it's easier to ghettoize it, to marginalize us, to shoot us. Then it's easier to maintain and teach the world the fiction that we don't exist as full participants in the American dream, that we could never be equal to or better than." That's how a seemingly innocent comment from David Schwimmer reverberated in my community. Scratching the wound of a historic crime, it unleashed a posse of digital warriors voicing their frustration against a rigid system that still marginalizes and underrepresents us, that keeps us forever out of the cultural mainstream. Unquote. So a lot of people sided with Erica Alexander with this, and pretty much David Schwimmer pretty much had to eat crow and apologize and say, "I didn't mean to imply Living Single hadn't existed or indeed hadn't come before Friends, which I knew it had. Please remember, in an interview, quotes are often pieced together and taken out of context. And then there are quotes are repurposed in other articles by other people who are trying to be provocative." Unquote. And then he pretty much also posted an apology also to Erica Alexander when he pretty much wanted to apologize more about Living Single and say that how much he was a fan of that, you know what I'm saying? So that's just the end of that. Living Single still remained one of the best sitcoms ever and also one of the most influential of all time. I was so glad I finally did this episode and whatnot too. Appreciate y'all for watching, and I hope y'all see y'all later. Peace.